And welcome to Two Gray Goatees and a Whistle. I got Coach T back. I got Tanner back. Thanks for coming, guys. Got some stuff to talk about. Welcome, guys, for coming to the show. How's it going? Yeah. Nice seeing you, man. Missing that beautiful
Going
face,
well,
man.
man. Thanks for having me.
Happy to be here.
So, in today's episode, a couple things I wanted to talk about. There was something come out from the Aspen Institute called the Children's Bill of Rights in Sports. And we've had the conversation before. We understand some of the dynamics that have been happening in sports, especially youth sports. And we're going to kind of look at these Bill of Rights that they have and kind of give our thoughts. Some of these seems like common sense, but I think sometimes anybody that's not in the business, like all three of us are in the business or have been in the business in one way or the other when it comes to youth sports. So I think we can all give our expertise on this and kind of maybe bring to light people who outside of sports or even that are there but might need to see something like this about what's going on. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Coach T and how the basketball season went this year with the Blue Mountain. And then I've got a little segment with our athletic director. Kind of want to get his thoughts on a survey that got published about some of the concerns that athletic directors are dealing with, and want to see how much of this goes with what Tanner's saying. All right, gentlemen, y'all ready? All right. So we got an organization called Project Play.
Chat.
It's through the Aspen Institute. And their mission is simple: get more kids to play sports and keep them playing, not just have them come out, but try to get them to keep playing through high school. And the biggest thing is not creating burnout, not the quitting, not getting pushed out, but just playing. We need to understand that most kids don't quit sports because they're not good enough. They're quitting because it's not fun anymore. And so that's kind of the idea behind of Project Play. And so I'm going to list through the Children's Bill of Rights in Sports, and there are 10 of them. And some of these might seem pretty, like duh, but like a duh moment. But the fact that they have to make these might give you an idea about where we are in the world when it comes to youth sports. All right, gentlemen. Number 1, okay? Kids have the right to play sports. 2, kids have the right to have fun. Number 3, kids have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. Children have the right to be in a safe environment, physically and emotionally. Kids have the right to play as kids, not professionals. I like that one. Kids have a right to being coached by someone trained in development. I think that one's important. And kids need to have a right to develop at their own pace. Kids need to have a right to make mistakes. Kids need to have a right to have a voice in their experience. And kids need to have a right to balance in their lives. So kind of want your guys' thoughts on this. What, for you guys, was a couple that stood out to you? Let's go, T. Let's start with you, man. What's your thoughts on some of these?
Oh man, I really like the one about being coached by someone who is qualified, if that was what it was, because it seems like there's people that have good intentions. Yeah, there's people that have good intentions, but then sometimes it gets cloudy because it just seems like in watching youth sports, they get involved for the wrong reasons. Like they want to make sure their kid plays, and then they're passing up kids for opportunities that could play because their kid is on the team, and of course their kid has to be the quarterback or their star running back or whatever. I mean it's good, and I appreciate those guys out there, but sometimes and it may sound harsh, but like what they see at the college level and then try to install that kind of mentality into kids, it's not going to work. You just need to have them out there playing for the fun of the game and learning the fundamentals, because all the stuff that they're seeing is the product of kids that went through a program and learned it and then had football IQ. And you're asking these young kids to do stuff that you want D1 players to be, guys that are beyond that. And it just sometimes it's hard, I would think, for a kid that his dad's made him the star quarterback. Then he gets someone who's been in the game longer that wants to fix something, and then he's like, well, my dad said. And you're like, okay, that's cool. And I appreciate that. But you play for our team now and your dad is no longer the coach. And if this is how we're going to do things, because that's how it's going to be when they get on in their career anyway, they're going to run across the coach that's like, well, this is how I do it. And this is my program. And this is how our guys are going to do things. And it's not conducive for them being successful to be like, well, my dad said, or my specialized training coach that I pay a bunch of money for says that I need to do it like this. And I was like, well, he says you need to do it like that because you paid X amount of dollars for him to tell you to do it like this, and it's supposed to improve you. And I'm sure they're really good at those guys are really good at what they do. That's why they do it. But a kid has to also be open minded to like there's going to be different ways things are going to get done, and for them to be successful, they're going to have to be able to, not only in the sporting world, but out in the job world, it's going to be different. There's going to be managers are going to have different styles of how they run their shift or whatever they're working or with their crew that they're working on or their business, and they're going to have to be able to accept that. And that's one that caught me, that was like, because I mean, all of us as coaches, you've run across it, the guy that's, you think it seems like he's there for good reason until there's controversy with his kid in playing time, and then everything goes sideways and you're a terrible coach and you don't know what you're talking about because maybe there's a kid that's better than him and you play that kid. And, well, what are we doing?
Right.
He's been quarterback his entire life. Yep. When you were the coach. So I don't know.
It comes
I think that's a
back
good one.
to being coached by someone trained in development. And I think that gets clouded. And, Tanner, I'll get your thoughts on it in a second. But when we have this win by all costs mentality, especially at the younger ages, I mean, you're 9, 10, 8-year-olds, whatever, 11-year-olds, even in middle school, it's, you want to win, but that shouldn't be the end all. If your kids are developing and getting better and you are working on fundamentals and practice and stuff like that, to me, that's important because that's going to show success later on. And I think, and I don't want to bag on travel ball because I think there's some good travel ball coaches out there, but sometimes when you're playing 5 or 6 games a week on a weekend, and you're just doing games and you're not really practicing to get better, you're not really seeing the development I think that you could. I think you're missing out on some key potential there. Tanner, are you got an idea of any of these that you kind of stood out for you?
Well, I mean, kind of piggybacking off T there, coaching for the right reasons. Kids deserve that. One thing that, and I'm going to have to paraphrase a little bit, but talked about like kids being coached with kind of respect and dignity. I think part of a coach's job is to prepare kids to deal with different ways of communication. Some of my favorite coaches I've had probably couldn't coach today, and it doesn't mean they're a bad coach. It's just the style of coaching that was accepted in the past is no longer a norm of today, but their means of communication work best for me. I think as a coach, we need to adapt our coaching styles to meet the needs of our players, our kids. Because really, I mean, 99.99% of our coaching isn't trying to, isn't just going to impact the Friday night or the games on the hardwood. It's really going to impact them outside of sports. I mean, the foundation for this podcast is really the importance of coaching and how it's impacted you and Nick, but I mean, it's reached out to like T and I as well, like how coaching has sculpted our lives. And I think kids need that type of role model. Like we need to make sure, like within these Bill of Rights, like the right to dignity and how they're treated is we need to treat kids to the same level that we were all treated to make us fall in love with sports, fall in love with coaching, being a part of a team, being a part of something larger than ourselves. But with that, we have to be able to recognize a good situation and the means behind what people are saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
totally
something that stood out
for
to me.
a little bit is allowed to the kids have a right to make mistakes. And I think, and then I've talked about this before, and the safest place to do that is that practice and in sports. And I think if you can create that environment where it's okay to make a mistake, especially with young kids, you know, to try new things, what's the best place to do it is in practice, right? So I've always kind of the make mistakes one, and the other one was develop at their own pace. I think middle school is the craziest age physical development challenge anywhere in an adult's life or a human's life, is because you might have two seventh graders in class, and you have this one kid, let's go with boy sports. You might have one kid who might tickle 5 foot, maybe 100 pounds, soaking wet, going out to play, let's say football or even basketball. And then you have this kid who's a man child who probably looks like he is smoking cigarettes, bouncing out of his own car with a driver's license, that's like pushing 6 foot already and has a 5 o'clock shadow. And they're the same age. And then you throw them in the sports together, and obviously their development is different, right? Physical development. And so, and this kid that is 6 foot might be dominating everybody because he's physically gotten bigger than everybody, so he can dominate, whether it's football, basketball, whatever. But the kid that's 4'11" is working his butt off, doing everything right, putting in the work. And eventually, if he can develop at his own pace and not be pressured and not get ruined by, taking a hard hit and not enjoying the sport anymore, whatever the case might be. If he's able to develop his own pace, he could end up being more successful than that player who was kind of basically tapped out with his growth development in 7th, 8th grade. So that one kind of stuck out for me a little bit too.
That's a good one, Huddy. That's a good one. Everybody's caught up. They've hit their growth spurts and their testosterone and, development. And all of a sudden they're not the dude anymore. And then it's hard for that kid too, because his whole life he's been told he's the greatest and he's going to be the savior of the program. But now there's these other guys that are come along that developed a little later or not as quickly as he did or she did. And now they're struggling with trying to find themselves too. Not only, because they go from being everybody's hero and the guy that's going to be the number one dude to having guys that he has to compete with. And then he doesn't know how to handle competition when he gets into it against people from his town or, other towns or other schools or whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying? That's a tough grind too for that kid.
That was our 10 Bill of Rights based from the project play, which I think there's some, obviously for us, it seems a little more common, like, yeah, that should be there. But I think some of these might actually get people, even coaches, hopefully parents, admin, to kind of look at this like, okay, what can we do to make things better? And that's ultimately what we want, is to create an environment where kids want to be there. They want to play. And I think we got to do a reset and kind of figure that out, especially in our youth sports. All right, this next segment, I'm going to do a little quiz with you guys, and we'll see how well you do. All right. So I'm going to throw out some stats, and I'll give you a multiple choice, A, B, or C answer, and then we'll kind of go from there. You guys ready for this? All right. Question 1. What percentage of kids quit organized sports by the age of 13? Is it A, 50%, B, 60%, C, 70%? 60. So 50, 60, 70.
What was B?
60.
What was the percentage for B, Huddy?
You're saying C, Tanner? What's your thoughts, T?
I'm saying C.
You'll go B?
So you're going with C.
The answer is C, around 70%.
I'll go B.
70% of kids are quitting organized sports by the age of 13.
Yeah.
All right, T, I'll let you answer the next one. So you'll get yourself. It is an alarming stat.
It's an alarming stat.
That is crazy. And
that is alarming. That's scary.
Okay, so I'm at a small school, and all right, just real quick, before we move on to the rest of these. Okay, my 7th grade class, 20 kids total. That's all we got. Okay. Girls playing sports right now. I don't know if Tanner, you're seeing it. Z or T, I don't know if you're seeing it, but girls aren't coming out for sports as much, it seems like. And I can at least speak for where I'm at, that during winter, during basketball, they had 4 girls. That was it. They ended up being able to play 4-man games because they could not get, and the 8th grade class is quite a bit bigger. It's close to 30 kids. They got 4 girls, and all of them were 8th graders that wanted to play basketball. None of the 7th graders wanted to play sports. In fact, only one girl that I know of that was a 7th grader came out for volleyball. And now there's a couple girls that do stuff like on the side, like they do competition, like dance competition and stuff like that. So they are doing stuff. So it's not like they're not doing anything. But a lot of the girls, they don't want to do sports. It's crazy. And I don't know if Tanner, if you're seeing it where you're at, what's it like where you're at right now with girls in participating in sports?
I think the climate of girls' sports might be most impacted by travel sports, just in my opinion. We have volleyball in the fall at our school, but their biggest competitor is fall softball, which softball is also going all summer long and then the spring. Basketball, when it's not basketball season, there's AAU tournaments every weekend. Club volleyball is happening in the spring. Like, I feel like girls' sports, that's where you see the biggest drop off because all those travel ball teams are just doing tournaments in the demand. And like football, there's 7-on-7 football, but I haven't met many high school boys that are going to skip, a track meet or a baseball game to go to a 7-on-7 tournament. I'm sure they're out there, but they're not skipping it. But I feel like, girls, they got some fun sports out there. If you loved
Right.
softball, it'd be really
Yeah,
hard not to
totally.
just play it year round if that was your absolute favorite thing. But
Hmm.
with that, so too comes the burnout. You do it year round. And then by the time you're a junior or senior, you're like, all right, I have 2 years left to be a kid.
Yep.
I just want to be a
Yeah.
kid. I've done the sports thing. So, yeah, I see the same thing in my school.
That's crazy. That's crazy, Tanner. Because like this year in recruiting at the BMCC, I've talked to I don't know how many girls that have been multi-sport, 3-sport girls their whole entire life. And then when we talk to them, they're like, they're starting to decide, is it either volleyball, is it soccer, or is it basketball, or is it softball? That they can play at the collegiate level. Those are most kind of girls that I'm talking to. And they're talking about how their bodies are so beat up and tired of every weekend having to, or every day, go to one practice, then go to another practice, and then on the weekend, if they don't have a game, they go play in another sport. Man, it's got to be tough for a kid right now, and especially because they want to get that exposure and be put out there, but their bodies are only so they can only take so much, and there's a lot of pressure. It
Yep.
seems like maybe because like you said, they love the sport and that's what they want to do. It may not be their number one, but they're also really good at it. And so they want to, there's pressure from other people like, well, we need the team. We, go play with these guys. It'll give you more opportunities. And I don't know. It's a crazy because I don't remember it being like that when I was younger. We went, if we wanted to go play ball, there was no travel team. We'd go call up everybody and go meet up at the park and go play at the Lutheran church or go play dunk ball at one of the grade schools, to go play hoop or, play
Yep.
flag or, you know, tackle football with the buddies out on the football field and have dreams of grandeur one day scoring for the Tigers Mountain Home. And now there's, like you said, 7-on-7 camps for guys. There's AAU basketball for guys and girls. There's travel team volleyball. There's travel team softball. And then like you said, then when did they decide? You know what? I want to be a kid. And then people were like, "Well, you've been doing this your whole life. Why don't you don't want to do it now?" And
And I
what they
think
want
some
to
of
do and how
it
they want to
is,
focus their life. I don't know. It would
I
seem like a
don't know
lot.
how much is this is coming from the colleges. I mean, I don't know how much is coming from parents. I don't know how much, because travel balls become such a moneymaker. I don't know how much is coming from that. But when I talked to Eastern softball coach, one thing she did say is like, the time that she gets to actually go and look at players a lot of times is during the summer. So when the girls are on travel teams, it's, because they're in the middle of their season right now. So the chance for them to actually get away right now to go actually watch a high school game, and unless it's local, or they just happen to be in that area and they might be able to go catch it, the night before their game. That's really what it's happening. So I kind of see where, if some of these kids, especially, I'm just thinking softball right now off the top of my head, if the kids want to play softball at the next level, that's when they're going to get looked at. It's in the summer, not necessarily during the season. Not saying that's how it should be, not saying that, you know, I think you should be able to be a kid and have a summer off if you want and still be able to play a sport. But it just seems right now that's kind of where everything's at. And we already kind of talked about how hard it is for kids to get into college, especially with the transfer portal. We've kind of already talked about that. It makes you wonder how much of this is coming from college, how much is coming from parents, how much is this coming from the sports industry that's latched on to travel ball and made it a moneymaker. All right.
Solid points, man. Like we had a girl
Go
last
ahead.
year that we had a coach reach out to us, to a Huddy. Let me finish this real quick. And he told us how this girl she's a dime, dude. She's a bucket, right? And then the head coach later on, after we started recruiting her, he called and talked to her, and he was like, yeah, she's okay, and we have these club team coaches. Oh yeah, because they're, again, the dollar sign. Oh yeah, you come play for our travel team and there's a good chance you'll get good looks and people will talk to you. And then we get their recommendation of the kid is totally different from their coach who they actually play for during the regular season. So, you know, is it attached to a dollar sign? I don't know, but it just seems funny that that guy said how awesome she was and she could be really good. And then we get to talk to their coach for real, and their coach is like, she's like our seventh player off the bench, and she has some developing to do.
Right.
And you talk to the club team coach, and he's like, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
she's a diamond in the rough. If you get her, you guys will be getting a steal. Like, oh, okay,
Well, and
you'll be getting a steal because their parents paid you two
that's the
grand or
trap. I
whatever.
think. I think,
So for you to tell
and
us that, and then
maybe this is something that
yeah.
college coaches got to do when they're looking at travel ball teams, where because anybody can have a travel ball team, whether it be volleyball, softball, basketball, whatever, and they're a dime a dozen now. It's not like used to be where
Mm-hmm.
you usually had to be pretty good to be on it. Now everybody can have one. So wow, okay, this kid plays travel ball, but in high school at a 3-4A level, they're coming off the bench. So it's like, okay, how good is this kid really is? And so, that's when you have to do your research. Like you said, you had to go talk to the high school coach and kind of get that figured out. So that's another complexity, I guess, that comes with recruiting and with travel ball, I guess.
One thing that's kind of interesting that I heard just regarding participation in sports, a school in like the Boise area, a big school, they said in volleyball they had 120 girls try out, and in basketball they had
Hey,
27,
volleyball's big, right?
That's crazy.
and that's the largest schools in Idaho.
What's going on with basketball? Because the whole Caitlin Clark train, the hype and everything, it seems like it would be exciting girls to go out for basketball, but I don't know what it is. Is it the physical part of it? Because volleyball takes a different type of physicality. I mean, really, it's not anything like basketball where you're running up and down the court. And versus, that you have to be physically in shape because there's some things you got to do, but it's a different type of, physical activity. Is it that, or what is it? That's because it's not like, number of players you can have on the court's any different other than one player. You have 6 in volleyball that can be at the court at the same time, and you can only have 5 in basketball. So to me, that one seemed like that would be that much of a thing. I'm just curious, why is volleyball? Because it's the same thing here, where I'm at, where I'm going to school. A lot of kids want to do volleyball. Hardly anybody wants to do basketball, and I find that interesting.
Which program at your school, Huddy, is doing better as far as the women's sports? Is the basketball program pretty good, or is the volleyball?
I've only been there for 3 years, but volleyball's been the one that's doing better. And basketball did get better this year. They did a lot better this year, but heck, what was it? Probably about 2 or 3 years before I even got to that school, they didn't even have a basketball program. They didn't have enough girls come out to have a basketball program. So that might have something to do with it, because when you're not successful, it's like, do I really want to be a part of that? I mean, I can see that. I mean, I'm not saying that that's how it should be, because to me, if you love the game, you should play it no matter what. But I mean, I guess if the kids don't want to be, especially when winning and losing is such an important thing, and seems like kids feel like, or parents are even being judged in their life based off of their record in sports, which has no meaning whatsoever, but it makes you wonder. All right. So we're gonna move on to question 2 here. All right, Tanner. Or T, this one will go to you first. What's the number one reason kids quit sports? Is it A, too competitive, playing time, or C, not fun anymore? There you go. What's your thoughts? What do you think, Tanner?
C, not fun anymore. I'm gonna go not fun anymore.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, not
I
fun
think
anymore.
C's
That's
the
the
answer on
key.
that one as well.
That's the reason. All right, number 3. How many parents admit to arguing with a coach about playing time? A, 25%, B, 40%, C, over 50%.
A, 25%. They don't want to. Oh, I don't ever get involved with my kids' playing time. That's the coach's decision until their kid isn't playing, and then it's become their decision to rally up the other parents to go see gentlemen or ladies that are in the position that Tanner's in, where they have administrative power over the coaches. You know what I'm saying?
So you're saying 25%. Tanner, what do you think?
Oh, good.
I'm just going off of the parents I've known through both coaching and my current job. I think it's 50%. Every one of them has admitted they'll do it, but they'll follow it up with, but it's just because the coach is like he's an idiot or they don't know what they're doing. That's the only
Yeah.
reason I've talked to them about
Yeah.
it. I think it's C as well, but I think it's usually followed up with, but it's because of this. They all have butts attached to them.
C, that admit to it. That admit that they have argued with a coach about playing time. 50%. We're not talking about whatever else they argue about, the play they called, or God knows what else, whatever else they like to bitch about. Okay, question 4. What percentage of coaches say parents are top stressor? 30%, 45%, or nearly 60%?
All of them. See,
Did you say all of them, Tanner? Yeah,
all of
I'm
them.
gonna go.
If
I'm
D
gonna
was an
go with C.
option, I'll go all of them.
It's nearly 60% that say
Yep.
that coaches say parents are the top stressor. I'm in that boat. I think any of us, it's parents. The last question in this group: what is the number one concern for high school programs today? Is it the facilities, player commitment, or staffing, assistant coaches?
Jeez.
I think it's staffing.
Yeah, Tanner's going to go staffing.
Yeah, you're gonna go staffing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because coaches are getting burnt out just like yeah. I'm gonna follow that up. Yeah, because it just seems like guys are quitting the sport or not doing it anymore, just like officials, because they're tired of it. They're tired of getting second guessed on everything they do, or or it's not good enough, and they're just out there trying to do the best for the team, and people have other opinions on how things should be done, and or the guy across town does this and they win state titles. Well, the guy across town also has kids that are committed to the weight room and off-season workouts, and we have kids that don't do that. So, how do you expect us to be that?
All right, Tanner had it sweet.
Apples to oranges.
T, we're just a little behind them, but Tanner's kill. You could tell
Tanner's
because
killing it. That's why he's the AD. I'm just
It's almost like
telling you.
I've dealt with all
He
of
deals
these
with that.
things.
All right, Coach T, we're going to talk to you.
100%.
I want to talk to you now real quick. We want to talk about basketball real quick. All right. We were talking
100%.
about just some of the stuff's going on. Let's talk about the season. I kind of want to ask you, okay, just so anybody doesn't know, Coach T is one of the assistant coaches for the girls basketball team at Blue Mountain Community College. There in Oregon. Let's talk about it just real quick. What were some of the positives you saw this season? I know the season wasn't exactly the best, I mean, with the losses and stuff like that, but if there was anything positive that came out of the season, what was one or two things that came out this season?
Mm-hmm. We got hit with the injury bug early, lost some key players, and just the 6 or 7 girls that finished out the season, because they could have packed it up. They could have been like, screw this, I'm done. They stuck it out, even though, a lot of them a few of them were playing out of position, and we were asking them to do things that, what they were in high school they did, or, even early in their career here at Blue Mountain. It's just what we had to do, and just their attitude about it. They knew that it was a grind and it wasn't always going to come out, but they competed and, you know, never really quit. And so those things are, and development. We had some girls that came from when we first got them to their sophomore year that really
That's good.
improved as a basketball player.
The challenge is
So
obviously you probably talked about a little bit about, having these injuries. So I think putting these kids in different situations and seeing them how they grow through that. So overall, beyond the wins and losses, what are you probably the most proud of from what you saw from your girls this year?
just girls' confidence, because we had, not all of them were superstars at their high school, and some of them didn't even think they would ever play college basketball, and we gave them an opportunity. And just to see them develop as a young lady from who they, when they came in scared to shoot the ball, or were told that it's not their job to shoot the ball, it's their job to do something else, to be able to be comfortable enough to just, and then not look over at the bench immediately and wait for the coach to send somebody in for them. That was pretty cool to see, that they could actually score, and that no one's going to yell at them if you do shoot the ball, or take them out of the game and chew their butt and tell them that they're doing the wrong thing. So that I was pretty proud. We got a couple girls that were like that, and so, like I said, some that didn't even think that basketball was an option for them, and then they came and they competed and they finished. That's pretty cool to see, because I mean, like I said, they could have packed it in and been like, "This sucks. We're going to get beat every game." There's only 6 of us, so now we're playing Iron Man basketball with maybe a sub that may be a sub for my position or not. And asking them, we didn't have a true post, so we had a 5'10" girl going up against 6'2" girls sometimes, and you know, sometimes they get buried, and we'd still be out there, just do the best you can, because that's all you can do. Go out there, be quicker than them, and try to do what you can. So
All
those
right.
are probably
I
the best
appreciate that.
ones,
Is
I
there
would
anything
say.
else you want to add to that before we move on from the season?
It was a good season, man. I mean, and having 8, we started with 12 to 15 girls, and we just had girls that like decided right before the season started that they didn't want to play basketball after we already they committed to us. They left, one didn't show up, one just decided basketball wasn't for her anymore and she was just going to go to school. And it's just weird, the dynamic of kids making their decisions in life and what they want to do. It seemed like, oh yeah, they were all gung ho and, oh, I so want to be a part of this.
Then they're not there.
We signed them in April, and then
Hmm.
September, August, they're like, you know
All right.
what? Yeah, I don't think basketball is the thing
Yeah.
anymore. I don't, yeah, they're not there when we start
Well,
doing our
thanks for
stuff.
sharing that, man, and open for better turnout next year. I guess we'll see how that goes for you guys.
Yeah, we got some dogs in the fight. We got some kids that are coming in. I think they're going to be productive. It's still hard because our region, the East in the NWAC, is one of the toughest regions. And Walla Walla won it again this year. And like I was telling you guys before we were on air, like we lost 3 girls that could have been really good for us.
Right.
to Walla Walla, which is, the nature of the beast. Everybody wants to go play for a champion, right? And back-to-back champions looks pretty good on a resume compared to a team that hasn't made the tournament in a while and struggling, to try to get to be the best they can with what they're working with. And so, but we're going to get the right people there, and it's just going to take time, and then we'll just start making noise, and then people, then hopefully the recruiting game will become different. But until then, it is what it is. We can only offer the opportunity for kids to further their education through basketball at BMCC. And every time I talk to a kid, it's like, hey, it's a tough decision, no pressure, you do what you want to do. If it's come here, we'd love to have you, we think you'd be a great asset for our program. And if you choose to go somewhere else, nothing but best luck to you. And then, just know we're here and you have a home if you want to
Yeah.
change your mind. If it doesn't work
Good
out,
stuff.
we're always here for you.
All right, Tanner, we're going to focus on you now. You ready for this? We're going to be talking a little, some of the stuff that you're dealing with. All right, man. Okay. So
Yeah,
a
fire
survey
away.
came out, and we're going to talk about some of the issues that athletic directors, principals, superintendent, anybody who's in admin in schools that are dealing with right now when it comes to athletics at their school. And number one, finding assistants. Okay. Coaching has become the number one issue right now in sports in this country. Finding assistant coaches, not just any coaches, but qualified quality assistant coaches. The second one is problematic parents. You knew that. 57% are complaining about playing time. And then 37% is on role disagreements. So both of you guys kind of touched that. T kind of touched on that a little bit about the kid that played quarterback and then now he's not quarterback anymore. So that was brought up. When adults fight over roles, the kids feel it. That's like, we know that. And then the last one is funding challenges. We know, particularly right now, there's a lot of cuts coming, at least in our state, and I'm sure it's probably going to happen in Oregon and everywhere else. There's cuts coming up, and a lot of times it seems like sports take the hit, or extracurricular activities that could be banned, choir, whatever it is. So for you, Tanner, what out of these three issues, staffing shortage, parents, and funding, are you noticing all three of these? Is there one that stands out that you're dealing with more, or it may be something that's not on this list?
I really think the biggest issue just in the world today is always going to be funding. Um, funds really affect it all. If a high school football coach got paid $25,000, there's not a parent that would run them out of the building. But when you're getting paid, you know, a tenth of that, it's pretty easy to be like, I'm going to just be a football fan. So, funding is always going to be your biggest issue, in my opinion. Uh, Parents, it really like maybe it's ignorance and youth or whatever you call it, lack of experience. I feel like most of the time parents are coming from a good place. Sometimes they have thick lenses on their goggles, but there's usually some truth behind what they're saying. And, if I do my job correctly, I have mature enough coaches that I could talk to and they have the ability to reflect. And I think one thing that solves a lot of issues is just that setting ego and pride on the back burner and just reflecting on what you're hearing. But at the end of the day, the funds are the biggest thing. That's the biggest stress a small school coach faces because they usually have to pay for their own things. With my particular school, we do jersey rotations, but it almost never happens perfectly because you can't say when a team's going to need it. So some teams just fundraise and do that on their own, and that burden kind of falls on their program and their fundraiser. But really, to make things happen, that's what you got to do. So, me, it's always going to be funding. I can't stress enough how much of a battle that is for every single program and every single sporting event and
Right.
really every single
Yeah.
person in the world.
Yeah. I don't envy you and what you're having to deal with. Yeah. definitely what some of the things you got to deal with. And I do think the funding, and I liked how you put it, how that ties to coaches, where, you know, the coach getting, you know, 5 digits, 6 digits to coach in some cases, depending on what state you're in, versus the one that's getting a couple thousand, to coach, to be a head coach at a program, at a 4A program. Like, I think sometimes that is a relationship to sometimes what type of, staffing issues, especially with coaching, because like you said, it's easier. Hey, I'll just be in the stands, be a fan, versus stepping up and being a coach, because you're looking at the money versus
Dude, that's a good point, man, Tanner. The funding, because shoot, just a couple years ago, they took, I don't know, half of our terms away from us at the college, so it makes it harder for us to recruit because you only have so many terms, and every kid wants a scholarship, right? Or you bet you got to try to get every kid a scholarship, and then they make a decision. It was either the athletic scholarships take a cut or they cut a professor at BMCC anyway, and they decided to pay the professors and cut the athletic budget.
Yep.
And then, normally we'd have cruisers when we go to games that are further away. Now we're, maybe sometimes driving our own little buses, or they call them cruisers, but dude, Tanner, they are not the cruisers I think of.
so we'll go ahead and kind of finish up here. March Madness is going on, guys, and I'm sure you guys are probably following it a little bit, at least a little bit. I don't know how many guys filled out brackets. I didn't fill out a bracket this year, but uh, knowing who's in there right now. As we speak, there are games going on right now, and when this gets posted, we'll know who our Final Four is. So on Monday, we'll know who our Final Four is. But I kind of want your guys' thoughts, your predictions, who you kind of see going. Who do you think has the hard side of the bracket that may have the most trouble getting in? It looks like right now, Arizona, number 1 seeds available. Duke is another number 1 seed. Michigan's another number 1 seed that are playing tonight or are playing this week or tomorrow. What is your guys' thoughts? Who do you think is going to be in the championship with the teams available? And then the next part of this question is, who do you think out of the number 1 seeds has the hardest bracket to get to, you think, the championship?
I'd have to be looking at a bracket right now because I just watched Purdue knock off Texas. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Arizona's playing right now.
Arizona's up on Arkansas. Yeah. I like Arizona. I think Arizona has all it needs. They've got a well-rounded team and they're pretty good. I think they might make it to the ship. And then I don't know, man. Michigan's tough too. They're a solid program. I like Michigan too.
Yeah, and those
all
two I think are on the same sides.
It's going to be a tough road for whoever it is to get to the because that's why we play the game, right? Because it's not automatically by the number in front of you. You got to play the game and you got to beat somebody to survive and advance.
Yeah.
What you got, Tanner? Who's your guys? I know you got some diamonds over there.
I think the hardest one probably was Florida, right?
Knowledge
they lost
on this subject.
Yeah.
I think Duke is out of the ones left, got the toughest road because I'm all in on the UConn train. I think UConn's going to win it, but I do think they play Arizona. I'm not trying to attack Michigan here, but Michigan's the 1 seed that moves the needle the lowest amount to me. I think they're a really good program. I do feel like, big moments, your big time players rise to the occasion. And I think Michigan's, in my eyes, I think their post is probably their best player. I just don't think he's going to be enough to get over that hump. Like if they run into the buzzsaw that is Arizona, that'll be a tough go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I grew up an Arizona fan in basketball because, that's where my uncle went to school and stuff like that. So I remember when Sean Elliott, Steve Kerr, all those guys played there. I remember their one championship year, I think it was 97. They had Mike Bibby and Miles Simon and those guys, and that was their championship year, and I think they beat Kentucky. But as an Arizona fan, it's like you're waiting for the heartbreak to happen, even though they've had some really good teams in the past, and I so much want them to get back to the national championship. I hope they can. I think their schedule, I think they can. I think if Michigan because I think Michigan's on that same side of that bracket, I think Michigan could possibly give some trouble. But I think overall, like T said, I think Arizona is the best. I think Duke is going to have the harder schedule because I do think UConn could be that team that could definitely be in that championship situation. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. All right. I was going to have a mascot of the week. That didn't quite happen because I saw something and I took it off because I was thinking it might be an issue with what's going on streaming. Sports Illustrated comes out with the mascots, like their rankings. So they take all 65 teams and they rank the mascots they think are the best based off of maybe what they can do. I think part of it's what they can do versus what they look like and so forth. 2 schools didn't have mascots, Hawaii and Illinois, for cultural reasons, which I can understand. But who do you guys think was the number one mascot ranking according to Sports Illustrated?
Like by
You
state?
guys could take a guess. Just by the teams that are in this year, the teams that are in the tournament, in the dance, what college do you think they ranked number one, have the number one best mascot?
I mean, shoot, man, I don't know. By what their mascot can do is how they ranked it. Is that what you said?
It was kind of like, yeah, it was kind of like what they can do, and just I think their appeal to that school and how they meet to the general audience, I guess. Like what do you guys think was
UMBC
the
Retrievers.
number one ranked? Ooh, no, good one though. That wasn't them.
What's their mascot?
The Retrievers, right?
UMBC, the Golden Retrievers.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
The Golden Retrievers. Yeah. So
that's
a man's best friend.
That's why I was asking what they could do, because if you go off of like what they could do, that's why I was asking, because like High Point was in the
yeah, High Point, but High Point wasn't it. No, it wasn't them.
Tennessee State.
No, not Tennessee State. It's actually, we actually just talked about them. They are SEC team, I think. No. Yeah, I think it's their SEC.
SEC.
Is it Purdue?
Believe
The
so.
Boilermakers?
No, it wasn't the Boilermakers.
No.
I think they're SEC.
Who did we just talk about?
Who's an SEC team? This
Arkansas?
Yeah. They got eliminated.
Alabama?
They got eliminated. It wasn't Arkansas. The Razorbacks, even though.
Missouri?
No.
Sorry.
Nope. And you guys go over. I'll give you guys one more shot. Give you guys one more shot on it, and then
for sure SEC.
I'll tell you what.
Texas.
Texas is
it the
Texas
Gators?
12. No. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's the Gators.
Ooh.
Yeah, Florida.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they had Florida down as the number one. Now, don't ask me why. One of some of them that were up there like in the top 10, which I kind of could see because I've seen him in person, and the BYU Cougar, because that guy does some athletic stuff. He's done some crazy stuff. Like, it's pretty cool watching some of the stuff he can do that they've showed. So I could kind of see him being on there.
He's athletic.
Yeah,
that
athletic.
Person is athletic.
Yeah. So
you were talking about the person mascot. I was talking about the team mascot, like that's on me.
They're talking about they're talking about the person dressed up in the Florida Gator. Yeah, the person that's sorry. I that on my end I should have been a little more specific on that, because like
I was
the Georgia
thinking the
Bulldogs.
Wildcats.
Yeah.
Blue Devils, pretty
the Georgia
powerful.
Bulldogs, they got an actual dog, Yeah, Blue Devils, yeah. So Yeah. So yeah. So in lieu of not having the mascot of the week, was the mascot. My theme was Sports Illustrated's ranking, and they had Florida Gators #1 for 2026. This is the third year in a row they've done some kind of ranking. So I'll do some more research to see what other ones they've had in the past. All right, gentlemen, that's it. A couple things I want to throw out there. #1, Colston Loveland's golf tournament's coming up May 2nd. That's coming up. There's also the spots for the golf tournament to participate in the golf part. That's booked. There's no more spots left. However, they're still looking for donations. There is a luncheon that's going to happen with that. So even if you can't go golfing, you can do the luncheon. On top of that, I want to bring this up. I have been in contact with some of the powers that be at the tournament. I am going to be donating 2 tickets from the Savannah Bananas game in Boise, which is going to be the Banana Ball. So the Banana Ball game that's happening July 31st and August 1st. The August 1st game, I'm going to donate 2 tickets that are going to be basically a drawing. And I'm working out the details right now on how to do that. From what I'm looking at doing is people who show up to the luncheon, they will get a ticket. They'll just be a part of their being there. And the winners, them and their guests, will get to join me and the coach's wife at the game on the 1st. So Savannah Bananas, baseball, hopefully we've talked about it. Hopefully you guys know what it is. The Party Animals, Texas Tailgaters, will be playing on the Blue on the 31st of July and August 1st. On the 1st of August, you can join me and the coach's wife. So those are getting donated to the Special Olympics, Idaho Special Olympics. That is Cole's, his charity. So try and help him out there a little bit. All right, guys, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys taking your time out tonight to be a part of the show. I hope everything goes well for everybody. Keep in touch, and we'll have you on another time.